The following podcast is sponsored by Basico. At Basico, we understand your needs and pain points. Our expertise in CFO services, legal, finance IT, and people and payroll helps drive your business forward by inspiring change and challenging norms. We believe in deep explorative discussions and critical angles, the same spirit that fuels the Only Constant podcast hosted by our own Lasse Rindom. Discover more about Basico's vision and services at basico.dk. And if you like what you hear in this episode, please don't hesitate to share it with a friend. And now Lasse, take it away.
You are listening to The Only Constant, a podcast where we go beyond the usual discussions in technology and business and aim to explore more than explain. Join me for engaging discussions with a diverse range of global thought leaders as we seek to uncover new perspectives and insights in a free-flowing conversation. My guest today is Anna Tebelius Bodin, and I am your host, Lasse Rindom. Hi, Anna, and welcome to The Only Constant. I'm really excited to have you here today, and I think it's going to be super interesting to speak to you. I know you have so much to say, and you are a well-known speaker and Harvard graduate and tons of things, right? But and a lot of other things too as well. But Anna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Lasse. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. It's going to be so exciting to speak to you.
And now I almost started introducing you, and I never do that. But I stopped myself doing it as well, right?
I was a bit surprised you were starting with the introduction there, but sure.
But I was like, no, I won't do it anyway. But so people can always. And by the way, I have never said that on the episode, but a podcast. But the reason I don't do this because you can just look up people, and Anna should be looked up. So that now I've introduced you, Anna. That's all you get.
Thank you.
So Anna, yeah. If it takes more than 5 minutes to understand, it's probably worth your time. Something Carl Friston said in a previous episode of this podcast. Why is this quote so good and so provocative today? And how does it resonate with your work?
I mean, I like understanding things, obviously. That's my aim for most of what I do. I like to understand humans. I like to understand patterns and why we act and do and feel the way we do, and the development of humanity. So obviously the core interest in my mind is things that you don't understand quicker than in 5 minutes, naturally. So in that sense, it's obvious that it's more interesting when it takes more effort to dive into. But also, since the object of my interest is the brain and how we actually process things, the other aspect of that quote would be the fact that it takes the effort, the fact that it takes some diving into and some deeper understanding and knowledge and connection to other references, that within itself will develop our brain when we dive into it, instead of this easy digested quick dopamine shots, so to speak. So in many dimensions, obviously I agree with that quote.
So that means that you're are you diagnosing modern society a little bit here as well?
Seems so cliche to do that, but sure. Although every time we do that, it seems like we are downplaying or in any sense like patronizing the modern kind of humanity, so to speak. Like we would be less than our ancestors in any way. And I can say I don't want to judge my fellow citizens of the world in that way, because people would have done what we do today if I had the chance for all of human time, so to speak. So we do it because we can.
Yeah.
And so we are no worse and no better than anybody else, but we have been put on this earth with the access to things that we strive to get, and we are hunters and gatherers, and now we get it in unlimited form, many of us, and that has consequences, obviously.
But that is actually crazy. We yeah, it's bad for you to go on TikTok, but also quite fascinating that you can go on TikTok and not go out hunting, right? Or tilling the field. You don't have to move the rocks. Just sit here and go on TikTok, and you'll get food. Have fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's some top of the evolution about that as well, right? I also say, you're not living up to your. I used to say that if you're not in debt, then you're not. Using the big what do you call privilege you have of being a modern citizen in a society where you can be in debt, right? You can overspend, but I think I know that's a bad thing, or in an environmental discussion. Okay, but still,
I see your point. Yeah,
I see so many people in history who would have wished they were able to overspend.
Yes, and they would have done it.
Yeah.
Had they the opportunity. Yeah, and we have the opportunity, and we take advantage of it. Of course, we do. But that doesn't mean that it's good for us. That doesn't mean that we're better off having these possibilities. My point is strictly we do it because we can, and our ancestors would have done the same.
Yeah, so we're not better or worse off for that way. But no. How can you then? So you said that you don't want to patronize, but you're still getting close to it now.
I'm saying not patronizing in the sense of judging in a comparison to our ancestors. I mean, we are humans with the limitations that entails. I mean, it is what it is. And we are put in a society where all these opportunities and sugar rushes and dopamine rushes and we have all these possibilities to get instant satisfaction, sorry. And of course we are doing that, but what I am reacting to is the fact that it's not necessarily good for us. And we've seen that. We know it's not good for us, but since there has always been this built-in limitation for people, because we couldn't get everything that we were striving for. Now when we can get it, it's becoming so obvious that it's not actually getting it that's satisfactory. It's being on a hunt for it. But the hunt is very short if we're actually getting it all the time. So now, for the first time, I would say in history to this scale, it's obvious that it wasn't the actual catch. It was being on a hunt for the catch. Because now when we get it, we're not better off.
So what is that? If everyone understood what you're saying here, was that depressed humanity? So what? So now we got it, and it wasn't what we expected. So was
yeah, I mean,
what now, guys?
Yeah.
Around being like, whoa.
So what else are we going to do with our time?
Caught this mammoth, but I don't like mammoth flesh, by the way. Did I tell you? I really hate it. I'm more of a vegetarian kind of guy.
Yeah. That's sort of where we are right now. I couldn't have said it better.
No. So what is the normative then, Anna? Straight to the point here. Sorry. So you're saying this is bad for us. We know this. This didn't fulfill us. So what will?
Progress. It's always been progress. It's always been being in development. That's what's driving us. That's what makes us fulfilled. That's what makes us feel accomplished. That is what helps us connect with others in our strive for other new progress. So it's progress. And if we are reaching the goal, the progress is very limited.
But doesn't it matter what the goal is? Is this the Alice in Wonderland cat here, Anna? Where where do you want to go? I don't know. Then it doesn't really matter which road you take. Is that what you're saying? You just
pretty much, yeah.
So there's no underlying this is the good life, but there is an underlying this is the bad life.
There is a good life, I would say, definitely a good life. But for that to happen, you need to differentiate between striving for something and actually getting it. So we can strive for things that takes effort, that takes intention, that takes choice, that takes something from you. But when we
5
realize that
minutes.
there's a sorry.
5 minutes, for instance, more than
Yeah,
5 minutes.
5 minutes, for instance, exactly. Yeah, but when you realize that there's a shortcut for something, and you take that shortcut, then you haven't realized that it's the strive that's the point.
And
You
now,
are taking the shortcut because you can, and then you get to instant gratification or like satisfaction, and then you lost it
so
because
what?
it's the way there. That's the
So
point.
what happens then when we start automating our thinking and outsourcing it to machines and get quick answers to how we wanted to think?
We get very efficient. We get lots of things done. We accomplish a lot. We put new stress on each other because everybody is working so quickly. So imagine like decades ago when we had to wait for an actual paper to arrive in the mail
Oh yeah.
for you to get a new assignment to do things. I mean, and now it's instant. So, and we're not even limited anymore by our own minds and what we can do. We can actually get machines to make us look even more efficient, or actually become more efficient, depending on your perspective. But that also obviously puts a new stress on other people that is going to react to what we are accomplishing. So that does a lot to us, obviously.
But there's a double thing here, right? Because I think that at some point there's you need to strive for something, and that also has to be interesting in some way. I assume, maybe I'm wrong here, but one of my colleagues said the other day he'd been on a course about leadership where he'd been told that people get stressed because they're doing things they don't feel they want to do or should do, or isn't something that stimulates them in any way, and then they get stressed from that, from having this unpleasant a strain of something unpleasant that has to be done that's on their table, right? But at the same time, I think there's value in actually doing things that doesn't feel good. Or I'm just trying to figure out what is actually going on here. Are we saying to people, only do what you feel is good? Okay, then I'll be serotonin, dopamine, I don't know, TikToking my life away, or should I would well. But that's not good for me. So does it have to be hard?
Yes, it does have to be hard. And that is the whole idea of the whole, I mean, talking about being normative here.
Yes, please.
Yes. So when it is hard, you are putting in effort, and effort gives meaning. So if it doesn't take any effort, if it doesn't take any intent, if intention, I mean, if it's just easily accomplished and it didn't take anything from you, not time, not effort, not energy, not focus, it was just produced, you were given something, it's like a privilege. Then you don't appreciate it, you don't feel proud of it, because there's obviously nothing to be proud of, you were given it. And then you don't get this fulfillment, you don't get meaning. You get efficiency, but you don't get meaning. And since it always took more and more efficiency to accomplish things up until pretty much now, then we got meaning from striving for something and become more and more efficient and get more and more accomplished. But now when we can do it without effort, we sort of lost the point.
Yeah. It's like
because we lost meaning.
Yeah, we lost the idea of. We lost the thing not the thing we're striving for, like the idea that we had in our mind, and go for and try to build towards it. And now we're just getting something that might not fit entirely, but fits quite nice and almost there. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about writing a book, and I've been, I must admit, that's been a thing my entire life. I started.
Oh, wow!
I wrote a lot of poetry when I was young, right? And I want to write. I never wrote the book, and now I keep wanting to write a book, but the book keeps pushing away. And now you think, and some people are also saying, okay, but now with GPTs and all that, just get it out there. Just you have the podcast, you have all these transcripts. Just write the only constant book now. Tons of cool conversations you have with people. Just write that book. Make GPT do it. But I'm like, yeah, but then I didn't do it. And it's something I really want to do. And I feel, to some extent, that GPTs have made it even more difficult for me to do, because now people would expect something that is of even higher quality, because I could have had a GPT help me get that quality.
Oh,
So
wow.
if I do it on my own,
Yeah.
right, I might have a lower quality than if GPT helped me. But if GPT did it, I wouldn't feel that fulfillment. So I feel like I'm in this conundrum, right? This inaction space where if I write it, it'll be too bad. But if I have it with GPT, it will not be me.
But can you see that you're the only one that can put any soul into the text? That could make it you, that could make it human, and being able to connect with it. I mean, so many of the texts we read from ChatGPT are so soulless.
Yeah, but no, you can always tweak it. I've also had it write something soulful. I actually have sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, that was deep. And I'm like, okay, but it's still just, a semantic algorithm giving me that
Exactly,
depth. But it was deep, and it gave me, so I'm like, okay, this, but it's very much on this whole, what you just said, with me thing, the me part of it. What does it give to me? Is it my book?
Yeah.
Right, and I want to do. I think I always, and it's very much in point with what you said, that. And sorry if I'm just talking here, but Sigmund Bauman said that. Did you have a happy life? He was asked at the end of his life. He said, "No, I don't remember a happy week, but I've had a happy life, because each week I had something difficult to overcome.
Yeah.
But in the accumulated overcoming of all these difficult weeks, I'm happy." Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we have different views, obviously, of our lives. I mean, we have one idea of hindsight, to look back and see, have I had a happy life, and one idea of, am I happy right now, and another idea of, what does the future look like, and depending on what perspective we have here, we might have different views of whether or not we're happy. But I'm thinking, from what you're saying with the idea of your book, it seems like you connected writing this book as something meaningful for you. And that meaning could be taken away if you were to get ChatGPT to help you with it, because it wouldn't be your words and your creation in that sense. It's like the cake mix from the from the States, where they didn't have to add anything and to create a cake, and it wasn't selling. But when you had to add the eggs, people felt like they were actually baking, and so they took that out of the mix in order to sell better, and it did. So it's the whole IKEA effect. We feel like we like things more when we were part of creating them. So we like our furniture supposedly from IKEA better than other furniture, because we were a part of building it. And this IKEA effect, I mean, it seems like it relates to so many things in our society. But if we are no longer part in the creation, it has less value to us. And the book is no exception there, obviously.
But that is the whole co-pilot, co-creation thing, and people are also talking about it. It's a part of the discussion right now. But I just think the lines between that and the fully automated thinking is not just blurry, but they're being constantly, removed. I think have you tried these? And maybe you haven't, but I just these coding. These are whenever you're coding now in Visual Studio, it keeps completing the sentences, right? And it's like, and I spoke to some developer, like, it's actually quite annoying, they said, sometimes, because sometimes you don't want to write that, but it just writes it. It just wants to write it, and it's like, oh, but maybe that's a good idea. Maybe, so they get this constantly. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe that's a good idea. But maybe your idea was okay, and you never really know anymore, right? It's okay when it's just, to some extent, maybe it's okay when it's just, no, because there's nothing that's just, right. And you always, I think actually you said it already, right? That there's nothing that's just. It's about the effort put into it, right? So we will lose human meaning if we outsource our thinking to machines, Anna.
Yeah, because it takes so much effort and focus and a deliberate thought, obviously, then to go into deep thinking, and if that is optional. If you don't have to do that, then you will save energy. And our biological system has always been into saving energy, because we think we have a limited access to energy. But even though we today really don't in that sense, but we will save energy if we can. And we're talking about a part of the body, the human brain, which is 2% of our body. I mean, 98% of us is not brain, but the brain, 2%, it takes 20% of our energy. So if there's any part of our biological system where we can save the most energy, is obviously with the brain. So if we don't have to think, we won't. and that is today more and more an option, more and more of an option for people not to think.
So this which cognitive skills should never be outsourced then? Or let me put it another way: how should leaders facilitate the effort then today?
We should put a higher value on actual mindful input for people to actually be, to feel that they are contributing with their own minds, instead of filling up a function that could have been made by a machine, or sometimes even is a machine because you're just prompting a machine. And have people feel like their ideas, their creative mind, their ability to argue and reason and use logic in an instant conversation, like you put them on the spot so that they can communicate and think and deliver in a sustainable way, which in my mind is without the use of assistance.
But that's also then there's some, because the raw thinking, if the machine does the thinking, I think David Pontoppidan said it in the last episode, that there'd been some consultants from a big consultancy firm, and they'd been at a client, a workshop, and then while they were presenting some strategic insights, one of the client's representatives just ChatGPT'd, and it came up with the same ideas that the consultancy firm for a lot of money had come up with, and then he was like, "Why am I paying you guys?"
Yeah, and very legitimate question. Of course, they're going to say that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But it made me think about how our culture is becoming more and more then performative. It's the it's the performing of this workshop session, bringing us together to discuss and going to the board, maybe discussing these ideas, or are we simply at a place where the meaning and the estrangement will take? Because you said as well, we're always hunting the most easy, most efficient solution. And if it's inefficient to have a workshop, I get what you're saying, but will that ever happen? Will we ever go back to, let's not use ChatGPT. Let's sit around a table thinking, guys?
Obviously not. I mean, as I said in the beginning, we do things because we can. So, of course, we will continue doing that. And we've always done things because we can. And now the consequences are at a level where we should take more consideration of the side values that we're losing. I'm calling it side values because it's always been incorporated in everything, because it took effort to get any result. It had to have some sort of intent, and it had to have people focus on things. It took up people's time, and now it doesn't. And now all the side values of what we actually put in as an effort and time and energy and focus and money and everything, now that is lost. And we think that we reached the goal because we got there, but the finishing line is not the goal. It was everything that we accomplished as side values on the way there. So we lose the benefit of progress that creates the meaning, because we can.
So the full estrangement here.
Yeah.
It's not the goal. It's not the destination. It's the journey, Anna. Right? The whole.
It sounds so cliche to put it like that, but it's people strive for connection, right? We strive for progress, we strive for connection, we strive for being needed, being part of the group, we strive for adding values to others, and we strive for making the future better than it is right now. It's always been these aims in us, a hunt for all of this, and now we can accomplish so much without getting those side values of simultaneously stimulating all these things that we are striving for.
So, if Anna, if you and me should avoid writing a book together called "The Worlds We Lost," but instead wants to write, a world with meaning, what would it be about now?
Connecting with others. Use the technology we have, because I think both you and me, we have to agree that it's pretty cool to live 2025. It is, and all the technology we have and all the possibilities we have to solve these huge problems that this planet is facing with humanity on it, and all, obviously, all the other biological species on this planet. We have so many problems to solve, and so much resources now to do that. And could we just use the technology in a way that is meaningful? I think it has to be done through connecting people.
So not just to make us lazier, but to actually hunt the things that are still difficult, because there's still things that are difficult. That's what you're saying. I think actually Lorian Pratt said something similar on an episode far back, that there are still difficult things out there to fix, difficult decisions to map out. So why we shouldn't just settle for whatever. Now we'll just make everything simple here. There's still some really, really difficult things to figure out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the problem is, I see many aspects of the problem, but we do want to feel stimulated. That's part of our biological system and nervous system. We want to feel stimulated, and we can feel stimulated by getting access to things that stimulate us in terms of consumption. So we are consuming things, both orally, if we're actually eating things or drinking things, but also by looking at things and from our devices and our environment outside of the devices. But that gives us stimulation in a passive form. And it takes obviously less energy than to get the stimulation through production, through actually doing things and be active and solve problems and hunt and gather and build and create and connect with people. So all the things that takes effort, that also gives us stimulation. But production and consumption are the two ways we can get the stimulation that people have always strived for. So the problem is that we are addicted to stimulation. And when we can get stimulation from a passive form constantly, we are less and less engaged and motivated to get stimulation from production.
Yeah, we see that with kids as well, right? I have teenagers and I have young kids. If it's easy just to do it this way, why should I put in that effort? Why does it have to be hard? It doesn't have to, right?
Yeah. And why should I dive into anything that is hard when I can do something that's easy? Because what I need is the stimulation. I don't need that problem to be solved. I need stimulation. And that's always been the case for people. And now we have this choice of constantly getting our thrill without any. It's cheap. It's free. We're not putting in an effort, so it's effortless.
Yeah, but that deeper thrill, right?
Exactly. But you don't know what you're missing if you don't get it.
No, that's also why I think I said my kid my kids they always do the dishes. They've been doing that for years, right? So and then suddenly my son has always been annoyed at that. He's not 15 now, but now he's realized he's getting so many cool jobs because he knows how to clean a kitchen. Right? And then he earns a lot of money, and he is extremely proud of earning this money. Right? He feels so accomplished, but he would never have had that feeling had he not gone through those years of hating to do the dishes. But he's actually realizing it as well, right? So there's something.
Wow.
No, but it sounds like I have my kids also. terrible and fantastic. But you know how it is. You know how it is. Right? But I'm actually very proud of it. I feel like parenting well done. Thank you very much. And I even avoided doing the dishes while I parented here. Right? So,
good job, you.
Really well done, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that one of the things you're saying here is, and I feel that in the way we talk, I don't know if it's just Swedish politeness or if it's actually something different, but you're trying to avoid being overly negative of technology, saying there's so many good things, so many bad things, so not a pessimistic thing. And I want to just say, as I've said on previous episodes now, that I think that looking at the pitfalls or the future pitfalls or future fault lines is actually a high position, because I believe that we think this technology will go everywhere and be in everything. So if you think it will be everywhere, what will it mean, right? That is at one point at both a high position and a pessimistic position at the same time. So I don't think there's any difficulty here, right? So it's okay to bash at it, but also talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, and in my mind, I've always had this theory. I mean, for quite some time now, even before I even knew about the development of artificial intelligence. In my mind, it's always been that whatever technology we are developing, some people will use that to think further, to get to different discoveries than we've had any opportunity to get without the technology. And we can solve problems and cure diseases and connect people and maybe create peace. I mean, people will go so far with this that we've never been able to do before. But other people will use the technology to get out of thinking. So they don't have to think. And they will lose by doing that. So many great values of what makes us feel meaningful and have a purpose in life will be lost through that. But so I wouldn't say that humanity is going one way. I think humanity is always going at least two ways. Always, yeah. And now with this potence in what we have in AI, it will go two ways even clearer than ever before.
I wanted to ask you, because I know this is something very close to your heart as well. I wanted to ask you, maybe I have a plan to do that later on in this episode about education, right, and schools and schooling, all that, and but I feel like there is a connection here that seems to be the same. So I think that what you're doing, what you're saying to leadership in business and it's the same that you'll be saying to an education connection, right? What's going to be the golden rule for education? Is it also going to just be this connecting? Is that what we're going to do, or what does it take to educate the future generation? Is it important?
Yeah. I mean, sorry, being someone who's been in education for, all my life. I mean, I was in school for I don't know how many years with 2 masters and ending up in Harvard with all the people that's also always been in education. And since then, the 20 years I've been working and training people and giving lectures. I've been in education literally all my life. I should have a view on this, obviously. But to answer your question, what will happen to education? I must say, I don't know.
Oh,
I'm not very common that I don't have a point of view.
My wife is actually a teacher, and I promised her now I'm going to talk to someone who has an opinion here. So,
yeah, I wish I had. No, it's when we delegate thinking and we have a generation that it's not even considering. And I mean, I'm exaggerating here, obviously, and generalizing, but speaking to so many teachers and so many also business leaders with the responsibility of education within in-house training in companies and organizations. So it's not only, I'm not saying only kids, I'm saying the whole range of people. So many are now in the belief or should I say the lack of belief that it has to do with the development of our brains and more on focusing on the results. Sorry, need some water.
Yeah.
And if you can get the result, it doesn't have to be represented by anything in your brain. So as if it looks like you can do something and you can imitate knowledge and competence, it's enough.
Mm. And
And with
you're
that
saying we should turn it
idea, I don't
around.
know what will happen to education
But it
because
will
they also have the ability to fake it.
But it's also you're asking everyone to turn it around, right? Saying that the goal is not the goal is the journey, and the journey, and you know, and that is a tautology, right? It's a circle thing, right? It's
Yeah,
saying that
yeah,
it's not about where you want to go; it's just about going. But where are we going there? We're going to where we're going, but it doesn't matter where we're going. But we just go. There's something here that's just paradoxical, right?
yeah.
So, so is it even possible to turn around? The thing about having a goal is so nice because it's linear, right? Or are you just saying we should just embrace agility? Agility is that it? Just all be agile. We don't know where we just keep on doing things, going scrum sprints and stuff like that.
I mean, it's so dual here because we do need the results, obviously. But I mean, people didn't write essays in school because we needed all these essays,
Mm,
right? We didn't need those essays,
no.
and we don't need people to move around weights at the gym.
Mm,
They don't have to be moved around. We do that in order to get bigger muscles and be stronger and do other things in the world. So the same things with schools. We do things in school to train the brain to think. It doesn't matter how many math equations or grammatical insights or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not that those results had to be turned in and make the world better. It's what it does to your brain with all the effort and with all the build-up of knowledge and competence. That's what it's doing to your brain that makes you feel more capable and self-sufficient, but also, ironically enough, more connected to other people.
mm, mm,
And all this development is what so much of what school and education is about.
mm.
But if we don't, if we're not needed, I'm using the expression that, I mean, a brain that's not needed won't be used, but a brain that isn't used won't be needed.
No. No.
So if that is, I'm not saying that that's where we're heading with schools, but it doesn't look good.
No, but it's also. But I think we've also in schools to some extent been. I don't know. In Scandinavian systems, been a lot about this. Feeling good in the school, just sitting around feeling good in circles and talking. And that is again, oversimplifying. But I think some of the things that me and my wife has talked about it is that the classes he's always made good classes. Also, always from bad culture to good culture. She has had lots of these jobs where she came into something that was not working well, and then ended up having a really good culture there, right? But she's always done it by focusing on the core, hardcore things they had to learn, because to some extent that gave the students purpose, saying that they're looking at the teacher saying, "Why are we here? What do you want from me? Do you just want me to be still and cozy with my friends? I can do that everywhere else. I don't want to be in this room. So what is the purpose, right?" So I was still looking for that purpose as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that puts a pressure on schools because we can't do it badly, so to speak. I mean, we can't have a setting in schools that makes it feel even more pointless. We
Mm,
can't pacify people to the extent that we've done when we build up and during the 20th century, where we built up a society of a civilization through the industrialization and everything like that. Now we have a different kind of society, and it has to be more more of participation, more of actually learning, more of feeling your own progress when you are learning. And this large language models or like ChatGPT and stuff, it helps people with that. It helps people getting the response and having a partner to discuss things with and feel like I am learning because I realize, and then I can put feedback back and prompt a new prompt, and I get this reciprocal sense of my own progress. And we can do that with human. We can do that human to human. And I think the schools we see and the education systems we see where students thrive and when they put in effort and where they feel it's worth the effort and the energy and the focus, it's when they get this sense of, I'm sensing my own progress, and I do it because I'm a participant. I'm not a listener, a passive listener who has to sit still.
But is this an external value or is it an internal value? I think this is more an internal value thing you're talking about, Anna, right? Because previously, I'm just trying to, the external value, that was maybe the problem of the 20th century, right? What is the value of me? I'm a worker. I'm a, the cog in the machine, the whole making humans just replaceable part during the Second World Wars and all that interwar periods, we didn't really matter. So what's my value externally? But now it's about finding it internally. Is that what we're going on about? Because
I would say so. Yeah,
because
we can.
Yeah, because I was thinking down the lines of idle hands are the devil's tools, and saying, are we going to have something like that again? Saying that people are unemployed now, they're going to, I don't know, march for some, I don't know, idea or something like that. No, I don't think that's where we're at. I think it's much more individualistic loss of meaning, right? Feeling hollow inside. But what would that lead to? What could that lead to? Have we seen anything at all like this before? And maybe that's why you're saying I don't know where education is going, because you actually have no clue. But who should we look to,
don't
Anna?
have a reference frame for this. We have never been in this situation before. We never had these opportunities that could be a curse. I mean,
no.
So that's why I say I don't know.
So is this an Icarus moment?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I know we seldom tell the whole story of Icarus, but sure. So
what do you mean by that?
That is also about not only flying too high, but it's also not flying too low. And it's the. Am I making the wrong references with Icarus here?
No, Icarus is the one who flew too high, too close to the sun, and then
exactly. Yeah, sorry. Was from your expression, I was like, am I mixing this up? Yeah, but the whole story is obviously, usually we talk about not flying too high, too close to the sun, but it was also in the original story that he wasn't supposed to fly too low in order to get lost in the labyrinth. So it had to find the middle way, and he didn't manage
it's just
to do
become
that.
A hubris story instead. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Yes. So I like to believe in humanity.
Yeah.
I don't want to believe that we are throwing ourselves over the edge. So I like to believe that new movements are being born through this, but the question is, how far will we go before that happens?
Yeah, and also, will it just be? I'm always, buying vinyl in an age of streaming. That's my favorite saying for this, right? I will buy vinyl, records instead of streaming Spotify. Sorry, it's Swedish. Maybe you feel.
No,
please keep using Spotify.
I'm not that patriotic.
No, because that's also bad in Swedish, right? To be too patriotic. That's it's not polite. Anyway, so that's very Swedish of you not to be. Anyway, that's completely different.
Get around it.
Get around it. No, it's a catch-22. But the point is, my point was saying that's also just the Bourdieu way. Then the elite will start buying that, and then some people will follow, and we'll keep moving. But the whole mass of people, and I've been speaking about this also. It's very much the consumer AI I'm worried about. The business AI and in automation and in agents, I think will sort of that's just moving up the doing something differently, starting doing other things. There will be productivity. We'll have jobs. I'm pretty sure we'll have jobs in some way, right? It's the whole meaning thing, and especially the consumer AI meaning thing. That's the problem here, right? So what I want to get to is we've never had a moment where so many people have had access to this kind of technology before, just spread out to everyone in a second, right? And what that will mean to us? I've asked you this before, right? In this podcast, but I just don't. I'm just still curious about it. Really, really curious about what they will do to us.
Yeah, and what?
If enough
how
people
it
will buy vinyl, if it will enough people buy vinyl, right?
Exactly. How many of us will be nostalgic enough to hang on to values that we don't no longer need to hang on to in order to get the results? Let's have the vinyl being being a symbol of that. But since why would we put in effort if we don't have to? But the problem is that effort makes meaning and progress, and that is what makes us fulfilled. And if we don't have anything else to occupy our minds with, because we are not fighting for our lives, we are not hunting for food. And now we're saying this obviously from a very privileged part of the world where we can say this. But being as privileged as we are, this is the perspective we have. I mean, you and me, and probably many of the listeners. If we are not put in danger, and we come so far from being in danger, we don't have to put in effort to survive, and we are still limited to a brain with all that includes, that is focused on survival. It overarches everything that goes on in our brains. It's our need to survive. So that's why we see problems in everything, in order to solve those problems, to have a progress, to make our future better, so we have better chances of survival. That's why we connect with people, because we are too limited as human beings in order to survive by ourselves. We need the group. So it's survival. And everything within us is about survival. And if we are so far from being threatened in any way, then the meaning will be gone.
The thing about survival. The thing about survival is that I think Yuval Noah Harari said it in one of his books. I can't remember which one. That in evolution, it's all about surviving. Right? Evolution about surviving and dominating to some extent. And the animal that has, how do you say it? The most populous. That's not the right word, but the most numerous animal on this planet are, I think, chicken, egg-laying chicken. Right, hen, right, because they've attached themselves to humans, like the wheat did, and so we spread it all over. So there's something like 30-40 billion chicken or something like that in the world, right? So they've won the game of survival or the game of evolution, but they have lifespans of most of them like 2 weeks, right?
No,
2 months. I meant 2 months. You get my point. So the value of life just by surviving is not enough, right? Are we becoming?
But then we go into.
Are we becoming chickens with AI, right?
Oh, that was a sad dystopia. I keep going back to the side values. I mean, we don't find meaningfulness in survival, but what we need to do to survive will give us meaning, connection to people, and progress, and all these things. That gives us meaning. So we are still bound to a brain that is focused on survival, and that has been working for us because we got all these side values from what that makes us as human beings. But now when that is not needed, our brains won't be needed, and then they won't be used, and then we have even more need for AI because things are still happening and it needs to be in progress. We still need to develop things in the world. But if AI can do that for us, we are making ourselves useless.
But the funny thing is, I've spoken to a lot of people on this podcast, right? And also a lot of people have been saying things like that, sort of like that. And I think, Carl Friston said that social media is, a disease on the brain. And he actually said that. He's never that normative. Okay. I've heard from other people. It's like, so that's like actually quite crazy. But this is, but we're at this weird moment where everyone's like, okay, this is something that counteracts everything we've been before or done before, or who we are, and how our brain works and what makes us happy. And still, it's like we can't just, we're sort of waiting for our brains to change, but that's not just
That
going to
won't
happen
happen.
tomorrow.
No.
But
Evolution is very slow.
yeah, and technology
Yeah.
is very fast,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So we can't wait for evolution. I mean, it hasn't happened anything dramatic in any form or shape that it changed our brain for 40,000 years. So it won't happen just because we get AI. Obviously, the in the in the in the individual lifespan that we have, we are changing our brains because environment changes our brains, but the next generation will be born with the exact same version of
Mm,
brains that we've been born with for the
yeah.
last 40,000 years. So we can't reckon with evolution. People overestimate how much we will change because the technology environment changes, and they underestimate how much they will change within their own lifespan.
But does this mean then that we need to we need to be even more normative on what we want to do with this and not do with this? Is this sort of, because at the end of that, at the end of that discussion means that we'll also be less liberal in our way of using technology. We'll be more dictates, and you can't use this kind of technology in school. You can't use this at work. You can't use, and then dictating to people what they can do and when they can't do it. And then also at some point they're dictating what is the good life. And that's sort of, counter to everything we've built these
Yep,
new
yep.
technologies and these affluent societies on, Anna, isn't it?
It is. I believe in being more intentional.
Mm.
But I also know what I call intentional is what other people call um, banning things, so to
Yeah,
speak.
or essential, right? Essentialism in politics doesn't sound that nice. Intentional in politics doesn't sound the same way, necessarily the same
No,
way, right?
no, no, it doesn't. And going back to the schools, people say that there's just not realistic to be taking cell phones out of classrooms or schools, or I mean, because we have to teach them to deal with that as a normal part of life. And I see, I mean, obviously, parents are the same. Have the same idea that I can't limit that for because it's their whole life. So we are in all our anxiousness we are not being intentional with. We do know scientifically how learning works, how we process information, what distractions are doing to us, what
Mm.
it means to actually take notes instead of photographing a screen. um, we are we know what it takes to learn. But for some reason, people feel like, well, we can't forbid people to be constantly distracted and have no use of the educational system because they are in constant distraction, because we can force that on them.
Mm. Mm.
And to me, I mean, I'm generalizing here, I'm being quite extreme maybe, but in my mind, with the knowledge we have of how learning works, and we know how focus works, and we know how less and less able we are to focus if we are constantly distracted. You're not training focus by being constantly distracted. You're
No.
training focus by being focused.
So you're saying
uh,
that's why maybe some ADHD, I don't know, going around the
yeah,
world.
uh, exactly. Because since you brought it up, we need to differentiate here. People are born
Yes,
with
yes, yes, yes.
which people have been for entire time of human history. With people, a percentage of people have been born with a sensitivity to impressions,
Mm.
and not don't have the same processing mechanism to process information, and it's been very valuable to humankind because we've been more attentive to things than other people are generally. But now, from the society we built up, it's becoming a deficit, and we put diagnoses on them. Uh,
Mm.
that being said, there is a pandemic or epidemic
Yeah.
of people who are getting these symptoms of ADHD from being in an environment, sorry, with constant consumption.
Yeah.
Constant consumption will do that to your brain, that it will look like what it looks like if you have ADHD. because you're not using the brain to focus and to think and to be productive and put in an effort and develop cognitive patience and all these things that we need to do with the brain. We are just feeding it.
What was it?
Like
There was this rat experiment once where when they pushed the button, it got an orgasm or something, and then it orgasmed to death. I think I read because it couldn't stop itself.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I mean, speaking of doing things because we can, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's and if we just have our brains evolve from that, there's something here that we need to. So what you're saying is, and you're getting closer to that now, because I think you avoided it a little bit, but you're getting closer to saying that we need to have a normative for what we want to do. We need to say this is not good, this is better, this is purpose. Getting, you're getting.
Yeah, we have to be intentional. I like the word intentional in that way. Yeah. With what we do, because we do have the knowledge.
But David also said that in the last episode that we need, it's called deliberate AI. We need to figure out what is it we want to do with this. Also on business AI, what is the normative? What do we want to do? And that also means asking, and this is the unpleasant part, what don't we want to do? What is not okay?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm getting so old when I say that that's important, right?
Yeah.
Because my kids will not agree with me.
No, but why would they? Being raised in the society that they have. They are also children of their times, as we all are. I mean, you and I are children of our time. We've experienced the world before internet, and we've had most of our adult lives with internet, and now we're thrown into AI. We have perspectives, obviously, because of when we're born and the perspectives that we can be expected to have.
So being a little bit more purposeful on everything. I want also to get to it wasn't a poem you wrote. It was more of a LinkedIn post, actually. But I felt it read so much like a poem. And maybe it's because it's in Swedish, so I felt it sounded nice. Can you just read it to me? I think you have it as well, right? Don't you?
I do have it. So let's see what I've wrote.
Let's do it in Swedish, just because that also sounds...
You want me to read it in Swedish?
Yeah, then we'll translate it afterwards.
Okay, so. Aldrig har väl så många stoltserat med att kunna formulera vad de aldrig tänkt, presentera vad de aldrig förstått, konsumera vad de aldrig lärt och producera vad de aldrig skapat.
Nice.
So should I say this in English?
Let's do that.
Yeah, okay. So never has so many people bragged about being able to formulate what they never thought, present what they never understood, consume what they never learned, and produced what they never created.
That sums it up, doesn't it, Anna?
Yeah. And to me, that is a problem.
Yeah. It's like everyone going around with Bake Off.
What?
Going around with Bake Off and saying, I baked this. I have made some cake for you. Some quick bake, some cake mix, right? And saying, now I made cake for everyone. No, is that the same?
I would say so. And to me, that devalues. It actually doesn't devalue per se, but in the subjective form, for other people seem to try to devalue creating actual value. To actually create something, to stand for something, to be the creator of something. Back
to my book again, right? Back to my book.
Exactly.
If I write my book and someone will say, you could have done it better if you used ChatGPT. But you're devaluating and I actually spend time on it now. But if I use ChatGPT, I won't feel it's mine.
Yeah. So that I totally see why you should write it yourself, and then you might need ChatGPT to translate it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, because that would be another level of being able to distribute whatever is in your mind or your thoughts and your ideas. But to delegate the actual thinking, that will delegate the reason to be proud.
Yeah.
And from your perspective, that's just the subjective view. But I'm thinking from the outside, reading a book that's been written by ChatGPT. I mean, I enjoy things because I get fascinated by a human mind being able to think things that I haven't been able to thought out myself.
Right.
I get fascinated by that. I get fascinated by other people's brains,
Yeah.
and
Same here.
it's like art, right?
Mm.
If you get a painting or a dance number or anything that's made by some that isn't intentional from any human mind, it's less interesting.
It just
I
doesn't
mean, it
matter.
could be perfect, but who cares?
Yeah, but it's like, I think it's like Slavoj Žižek said once. The postmodernity is like drinking Coca-Cola without cola, because you drink diet decaf cola, right? And it's like having sex without having sex by watching porn. It's like having things without having things.
Yeah, just
He actually said
simulate
that.
real
Yeah,
value.
you simulate value, but you don't have the thing. You don't get the thing anymore. You just get the signifiant of the thing, right? The idea of the thing, but not the real thing. And does it really matter? Someone wrote this. Oh, someone wrote this love poem for me. Yeah, but if they didn't write it, does it really matter, right?
Exactly.
Why would
Yeah.
I? But also I think in but it just that's on a personal level, right? But on an enterprise leadership level, it just means something different, because it's difficult there, because it's production, and if production is king here. If we do things more, we sell more, and people are happy with the quality of what they get. It's I thought this other day, you have this, and maybe I'm going on a limb here, right? But you have cloud is someone else's computer, right? Low code is someone else's code. AI is someone else's data. Is this just are we, and everyone's always also owes money to the same system? Is this sort of digital communism?
That sounds harsh, but I see your point. I still like to go back to, since I'm very much into biological intelligence instead of artificial ones. Uh, what we people, what we need to feel fulfilled and feel valued and motivated and engaged in life or business or whatever it is, we need to feel safe, obviously, because we want to just survive. So if
Mm,
we feel safe, we usually feel safe because we are in a tribe. We have a
mm,
group, we have our team, we have a family, we have a social group with friends, we have a team at work. We are included in a team
mm,
where we want what's best for each other. um, that sort of security, safetiness is a human need that overarches most other things. So we need that. We need to be part of a group, but we also need to, in that group, be significant with individual value. So we are contributing with something. So what I contribute with is something that's valued by others. So if
mm,
I feel like I'm making your world better, that's very satisfying for me, because then I have a value. It's not only I'm good, you can give me praise because I'm doing a good job. Well, good for me. That could be satisfying for a few minutes. But if you say that what you did for me was so enlightening, it was gave me so much value, and I was able to do this and this because of the talk we had, or because of what you helped me with, or
mm,
whatever, then I feel like, wow, I made your life better. That's huge when it comes to acknowledgement and satisfaction. So if we have safety and acknowledgement in that sense, we really just need to add anticipation,
mm.
anticipation of what's to come, what is ahead of us that's more better, finer, nicer, more exciting than what we have right now. If we can, you can do that as a parent, as a business person, as a client, as a leader, as a friend. If you
Mm.
can make other people realize that what's ahead of you is better than what you have right now, that stops people from suicide.
For
That
choosing what's wrong.
stop
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very, very powerful way of wanting people to hang on to life, because they have anticipation.
But
It's not about having everything already, that everything is already stable, that you got everything and you should be so appreciative of everything you have. No, it's about what's ahead of you, and that's worth being here for.
But let me
not
just
only with
let me just try to
suicidal.
okay, but let's move a little bit away from the suicidal and also away from the communist digitalism, digital.
Yes.
So let's move away from both of those because
Yeah.
they're on limbs, both of them, way very far out. But because just trying to take what you just said and saying because what it also means is it sounds really neat when you say that, but that also means you have to build in friction again into processes. You have to have friction. If you want
Yep.
good service in a shop, you need to have someone serving you.
Yep.
Or else if it's just an automated cashier, you don't get that friction, so you don't get either the bad service or the good service. Just
Service.
get the service, right? It doesn't matter, right? So you don't get this feeling like that was a nice person. I'm fulfilled. I can say, "Have a nice day. Thank you so much for your help." I can, all of that. That's what you're saying you want to some extent, right? That's also what I think Klarna said. We realized that the reason we removed 700 people for AI agents. Now we realize we need to bring back the human because the human is valuable in the end to serve people and give them good service, right?
Yep.
But Jochen Wirtz said on the podcast, that, and I'm going to ask you. He said that no one wants the bank clerk back. Everyone's happy not going to the bank anymore. But would Anna Tebelius Bodin like to get the bank clerk back and stand in line and then wait to get her money from a bank clerk? Or
I would like to have a human contact
you would
on the bank, but I'm perfectly fine with getting that on the distance.
Yeah, but you don't speak to them that much like you used to do 30 years ago, right?
No, of course not. No. So
but would you want to? That's my question.
It's
because that's the consequence of what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're saying we need to have these things back and have these conversations so we can get that, right? That also means you need to get all that friction back again, Anna.
Yeah, and we won't strive for that because we've been constantly striving for getting less and less friction.
Yeah.
But we got the value out of actually still having the friction. But now we're being successful in getting the friction out, which is...
Except for one place, in all the messages you get from school all the time about your kids, tons of friction, tons of messages, all the time.
True.
And everyone's like, can we just kill those friction messages?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
But that's also coming from anxiety, I think. The friction we get from schools, as everything has to be documented and everything has to be reported and everything, the parents need to know everything about the students during the school day and how many minutes they were late to some place and what they scored on the test before they even get home and tell the parents themselves what they got on the test. The parents already know, and we are creating a society where people are not needed because it's all in the information streams. And so we don't even need to see our friends because we can look at them up online and see from their Instagram posts what they've been up to. So we don't have anything to talk about when we see each other. I'm exaggerating here, but
becoming a data transaction.
Yeah. So my point is still, if we get people to feel safe, acknowledged, and have anticipation, we're good. I mean, if we can do that using technology, I'm all for it. But feeling safe, feeling acknowledged, and have anticipation. If we take any of those three out, people won't be motivated.
But don't you think AI can just be a sycophant and motivate you and say, well done, Anna, you're so good?
Yeah, but I didn't make AI's life better.
No, you didn't.
No. So it's just praising me, and that takes a few minutes before that is empty.
Yes. Anna, this has been a really great conversation. I think this has also been the theme of this episode. It's a special episode where we a lot of these challenges are laid bare. Not all the answers either, right? It keeps running in circles. No, we don't have them, right? But we're asking the right questions, I think. Or do you?
I hope so. But my idea about development and progress is constantly coming up with new questions. If we don't have new questions, we don't have attention to things, and we don't care. And if we don't care, we're pretty lost. So we constantly need to have new questions in order.
Now you keep saying constantly. So I think maybe I should ask you the final question I have.
Probably.
Are you ready for that one, Anna?
Sure. Yeah.
So, Anna, What is the only constant?
The only constant from my limited perspective of being a human being in 2025 is that we are human. We are human in a physical world. We keep talking about being in a digitalized world, but we are human in a physical world, and it becomes very apparent as soon as the light is out. We are humans, and as humans, we have minds, we have needs, and we strive for progression, we strive for connection, we are developed for adaptation, to adapt to whatever is coming at us and try to survive through any sort of environment. We are not created to be in control of everything around us, although we've always been striving for that because that would help us survive. But now we're reaching the goal very quickly, and the question is if that was really the goal. So keeping in mind that we are humans, problem-solving humans in uncertainty. That's always been the case. And I think we fool ourselves if we feel like there will be another sort of environment in the future where there won't be uncertainty, or that we are completely digitalized and that we don't need our brains. We can just lay around and be lazy and feel happy about doing nothing. No, to me, the only constant is that we are human. And saying that, I also feel that it's so interesting that you're asking the question of the constant, because we're constantly talking about change, how everything is changing. We are very seldom talking about the fact that no, not everything is changing. And people will feel safe and will feel that they have a position to contribute and can feel anticipation about the future when they are safe enough to do that, when they feel that there is stable ground to stand on. So the stable ground will always be emphasizing what's not changing. And then we can handle change, because we've always been handling change. That's in our human minds to do that and to adapt to it. So the constant that we do need to talk about much, much more is the fact that we are humans, with everything that includes.
Thank you for that answer, Anna. It's a really great constant. I also like that you said, uncertainty, that we need this uncertainty. We need this uncertainty, we strive from it. That's what gives us meaning and value, and we'll always have it as well, right?
Yeah.
We can automate ourselves out of it. So keep hunting it, keep striving for it, and maybe even design for it, right?
Yes. That's what we're made for. We're made for stress. We're made for uncertainty. We're made for adaptation. We're made for friction.
Made for friction.
Problem solving. Yeah.
Made for friction.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be the title of the podcast episode, right? So thank you so much, Anna. Thank you for being a part of The Only Constant, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Well, thank you so much, Lasse. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, share it with a friend or a colleague.